Friedmann, thank you for joining us today. Could you introduce yourself and give us a
Sure.
little bio on your background?
Sure. My background is I did a lot of math and science in college. I've gotten good at going fast through this, so don't get nervous. But I did statistical economics after college for 4 years, and then I went to law school. And in going to law school, I worked as a summer associate, and I didn't want to practice. So after law school, I went to Bain Company as a management consultant, which was a great experience. And then I found by chance a job doing practice support at a law firm, which was almost 30 years ago, and I didn't think it was going to last long, but I was at that firm then, Wilmer Cutler, almost a decade. Since then, I've been through 2 legal software companies, the CIO of a law firm, a solo consulting practice, and the management team of a legal process outsourcing company, and then with Friedmann and Company. So a somewhat varied background.
I'm kind of curious, in that plethora of jobs and the arc that you went through, what motivated you to start the Prism blog?
So I remember when I went solo, which was about 2002, I had a website. It wasn't very good. Actually, it was kind of homemade because I was just trying to decide, am I really going to do this? And eventually, I talked to a friend, and they said, you should really think about blogging. And I go, what's that? And then they explained, and I said, well, I'm already doing that. Like, I was actually updating in HTML, like this was interesting last week, and the blog was a natural medium for that. So I said, sure, I'll try that. So I started in one of the public platforms like Blogger, and then 6 months later, or even less, I had a professional website built with, for the techies out there, I think it was version 0.76 of WordPress. And I didn't know that I would keep doing it, but now I've been doing it for 15 years, pretty much uninterrupted.
And the topics that you started with before, have they completely changed following innovation? Or?
I've always focused on legal technology and legal innovation, but I've also written as much about the law firm as a business model. And especially when I got more and more interested in the early part of the century in legal process outsourcing as an alternative way of delivering legal services, I'd start writing about that. So now it's really more about the business of law than just legal technology.
And you're probably in a unique position to give a perspective on the practice of law for lawyers either entering in it. Do you find it a good field to still enter at this time with everything going on?
Well, I would say first there's always the individual decision, do you actually want to practice law? And I did not want to. That doesn't mean I project that to others. Then there's the economics, and there are fewer jobs today than there used to be, although there are also fewer law graduates. So people have to make their own decision. The concern I have is many people entering law school are not very well informed about market opportunities. That would be my biggest concern.
That's true. Well, with your blog, are you finding that you have a lot more interesting topics to talk about these days, or the innovations driving your blog at this point? Yes?
Yes, although I'm trying to think this year especially, but I've written blog posts where it might not be related directly to innovation, but I'm like you can see I'm thinking about this, and I would say that's been accurate in the last couple of years.
Well, let's go into some of the subject matter that interests you and that you have been writing about. I know blockchain's been big for you,
right.
And AI.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about any of that?
Sure. So my concern, I am very excited about artificial intelligence for lawyers in the legal market, both on the business and the practice side. But I think the hype over it has actually been somewhat damaging, because I see a lot of lawyers and senior law firm managers and law department lawyers and managers talking a lot about AI. And that is great, but they're not doing anything. I mean, some of them are deploying AI, but I think it almost gets in the way of deploying simpler technology. So at breakfast today, I was talking to someone about document assembly. This is a category of software that's been out there for 30 years, and the uptake on that has been limited, and that clearly what the application described was clearly going to save lawyers time. So I think we have to have a right balance between deploying and using what we have and the new, and really focusing on getting lawyers to use the technology and not talking so much about the topic. More action, less talk.
I'm seeing a lot of contracts and everything being introduced into departments and law firms for the AI use, but not much else. And in e-discovery. But,
yes. Well, the main use cases of AI would be, as you said, e-discovery, contract review, contract management, legal research, which is on the third-party data, data analytics, and internally law firms are using it for helping on budgeting, pricing, and time entry management. Those are the main use cases.
Now, for your personal interest, what are you looking at these days that are subject matters you want to explore more? Not so much in application business law, just perhaps for the technology alone. You see potential?
Well, I mean, I read so much. It's hard for me to say. When I started learning about blockchain, which is I think 3+ years ago, then I had to do a deep dive because it's not easy to understand technology. AI I worked for a legal AI company in the late 90s, so I already understood something about it. And so today, I'm interested in enterprise experience management for law firms. So I'm spending time, and that's more on the business side. I will be blogging more about that. Are you familiar with that?
No, please explain.
So as competition has increased in the legal market, what's happening is law firms are investing more in marketing. And it's no longer enough to have a fancy brand, a logo, or just say, we're from this fancy law firm and here are our bios. You have to present to a client, here's the experience we've had that's most related to your transaction, your litigation. Here are the lawyers we have with relevant industry and legal experience. And that requires managing the information in a way that is different today. And so there's a whole class of new software to do that. And I think that'll be is already an emerging area in larger law firms.
Who do you think's probably doing it really well?
Well, the main players do a lot of work with Foundation Software Group. Other products include Udesic, Intap, and Prosperoware.
With this interest point, you're going to continue the blog.
Yes.
You don't see an end for that.
No, I'm not blogging quite as frequently as I used to. I think partly it's my own time, partly it's I'd rather not just be a news broadcaster and have something more to say.
Ready to write a book?
Someone was talking to me about that the other day, and I don't feel like I have enough time. It's easier to do blog posts one at a time than sit down and outline a book, and even if I could collect and reuse my blog posts.
Well, I think with your wealth of knowledge, it would be a very unique perspective that I don't think I've read yet. So.
Well, thank you. Now twice in a week I have to give it thought.
Is there any other subject matter you'd like to share with us?
On innovation, because that's a hot topic, that it's great that law firms have innovation efforts, but we have to find ways to change how lawyers work. It's really all about efficiency. If we want to drive value for clients, whether you're an in-house lawyer serving business clients or you're a law firm lawyer serving Office of General Counsel or in-house people, the drive for value means doing more with less, and that means changing how we work. So is that scoping? Is that lower cost labor? Efficiency through AI or other practice technology? And there's not enough focus on the adoption and the change management. So I think that's where we have to have more emphasis.
Now the crossover with that and compliance, privacy that's coming in, do you see a crossover with that, or those
Sure.
having the same
Well,
footprint in the
I'll
firm?
give you one specific. I mean, the whole cybersecurity is driving what's called the least privileged model for access. So in the past, lawyers would write documents in a law firm and anyone in the firm could see them unless it was particularly sensitive or they were walled off. Now it's moving to only the people in the matter team can see it. So that's an example of where compliance and security will change how we deal with the documents. It will make certain elements of knowledge management harder. But that's the right trade-off.
And let's go back a little bit. You said you were a CIO as well.
Yeah, for
The law
a period, yeah.
That would be at a period that not a lot of lawyers were doing that.
Correct.
Could you explore a little more on that?
Well, I was a CIO at Mintz Levin, and they had a good IT director, and they wanted someone strategically minded, but they got very much hit by the dot-com crash because they had such a big IPO flow, so it didn't last quite long enough to see how that was going to turn out. So I wasn't there that long.
Any experiences you take from that you can still apply now, especially for management?
It is very hard to run the law firm technology stack given the complexity of enterprise software and cybersecurity, and still have time and bandwidth to understand the business side. So that's a challenge, and firms respond in different ways.
I noticed they hire different talent for different slots. You're kind of in a unique position where you do quite a crossover.
Right.
So,
I'm more focused on the practice and the business side. It's not that I would not want to be the guy deciding which cybersecurity product or approach to take. Or like, how do we configure, how do we build out a data center? I know about those issues, but that's not what I'd focus on. That's more of the pure technology operations.
and are you seeing a lot more lawyers that you think are peers operating in that space now?
I think there are more lawyers doing non-traditional work in law firms, in knowledge management, in marketing, in innovation, but you can't run the iron, so to speak, even if it's in the cloud, if you don't have a pretty deep background in IT.
Tell me, what was the last article that you wrote?
Because I write so much and I self-publish, I can't remember the last article I wrote. This is why I have a website, because that way I do personal knowledge management. So I'd have to go to my website, which is prismlegal.com, and look at publications.
I was about to get to that.
Yeah, and
now, I did see two names for it. So this was descriptive, the Strategic Legal Technology blog.
Right, that's not a URL. That's just what I call the blog. The blog, because of URLs and all that, I just called it Prism, P-R-I-S-M, legal.com.
Why Prism?
Because I needed a name, and
Okay.
I'm a science geek, and prisms are a way to see things a little bit differently, if you will, and both see differently around the corner and break down what you're seeing into its components, and that's really how I approach thinking about problems. Can I see around the corner? Can I break it down in a way that makes it easier to understand?
What would you like to perhaps tell people entering into this space what you really need to bring yourself up to date on that's really going to take over?
So I'm going to answer that in two parts. If you're just coming into the market, then you just need to be comfortable with technology and have a mindset to figure out what are the tools that can help me practice law. That's on one end. That's the entry. If you're in a large law firm or you're a partner with management responsibility, you need to be aware that not to be distracted, as we were talking about earlier, the innovation in AI buzz, because there have been major upgrades in document management, in financial systems, and in intranets, all of which are core tools for law firms, and they can tap AI and do tap AI, but there are big upgrades and decisions, including the cloud. So it's important to keep track of what the leading vendors are doing and roll out new product, and not just do it from the IT back end, which is what's often happened, but make sure there's an adoption plan so lawyers really get the benefit of the new generation of software. Mobility, easier to use interface, faster finding of information.
Thank you so much.